Hey everyone. It looks like we're diving into agency and client relationships again today, and specifically all this stuff about feedback. You've given me a ton to read about it. Should be interesting.
Yeah, it's really important. People don't, I think about it as much as they should, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things I saw was this analogy about like chatting with friend. Like, how does that translate to like a professional setting? You know what I mean?
Right. That's a good that's an interesting way to put it. I think it's about just keeping those lines of communication open, just like you would with a friend. When you're constantly talking to your client and really understanding what they need, it solves a lot of problems before they even happen. Keeps everybody
Oh,
happy.
right, right. So it's not just about being nice then.
Yeah, it's more than just being polite. It's about showing that you're really invested in their success, that you're on their team. When a client sees that you actually listen to them and use their suggestions, it builds trust.
Okay, that makes sense. One of the articles said that constant feedback can lead to clients sticking around longer, like they're more loyal.
Oh, for sure. I mean, think about it. When an agency is always asking for your opinion and actually using it to make things better, you feel like you're a part of the process. It's not just them doing their thing and you just paying for it. You're actually collaborating.
That makes sense. Kind of like a loop, right?
Yeah,
Everyone gives feedback and everybody wins.
exactly. A feedback loop, yeah. And it's not just about fixing problems when they come up either. When agencies offer feedback up front, proactively, it shows that they're being transparent. Clients really appreciate that.
Yeah, transparency is huge. Like you're saying, hey, we're not hiding anything. We're in this together.
Exactly. And that's how you build those strong, lasting relationships that we've been talking about.
So we've talked about, how important feedback is, but one of these articles actually listed like three main benefits: stronger relationships, better collaboration, and meeting expectations. And they actually go into some pretty good real world examples. I'd love to hear your take on some of them. They talk about like addressing client concerns right away. How important is that for like a long-term thing?
Oh, super important. It's all about being responsive. When a client feels heard, when they know you take their concerns seriously, it gives them confidence. It shows that you're really committed to making them succeed.
Okay, so it's like I said before, being on their team, and then how does that lead to, working together better?
Well, think about it this way. If you're not just listening to feedback, but actually putting it into practice, that shows the client that you respect their input. You're willing to change your approach based on what they need.
So it's not just about like, oh yeah, we hear you. It's about actually doing something.
Right. You got to take action. And when you think about it, each side brings something different to the table. Agencies have their creative expertise, and clients know their audience.
Right.
Feedback is how those two sides connect and really make the most of each other's strengths.
Right. So it's like everyone working together towards the same goal. That's powerful.
It is. That's what makes a true partnership.
Okay, so stronger relationships, better teamwork. And then the last one is this whole thing about meeting expectations. These articles were talking about how continuous feedback, keeps everyone on the same page, make sure the agency is delivering what the client wants. What do you think about that?
Oh, it's absolutely essential. I mean,
Yeah.
in any business relationship, you have to meet expectations. And when it comes to agencies and clients, continuous feedback is how you make sure you're both seeing things the same way. It's like a checkup,
Hmm.
you know? You're constantly making sure everything is moving in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Instead of just hoping for the best at the end, you're always checking in, adjusting things as you go.
It's about getting rid of the guesswork. With regular feedback, agencies can spot potential problems early on, make sure everyone understands what's expected, and fine-tune things along the way.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So it's like avoiding, what is it? Scope creep. When the project starts going in a direction nobody intended.
Exactly. Feedback is like a guardrail. Keeps everything moving in the right direction, make sure the agency and the client are both working towards the same goal.
And this is where things get, really interesting. These articles actually give some really good tips about actually making feedback work in the real world. And they all say the same thing. It's not enough to just get feedback. You have to, actually use it the right way. What do you think about that?
You're totally right. I mean, feedback by itself is just like raw information. The real value is in how you use it, how you act on it. And that's where agencies can really, set themselves apart.
So one thing they talked about was setting up like really clear ways for clients to give feedback. What are some ways to do that?
It could be something as simple as having a shared online space or using project management tools with built-in feedback features. Or even just having regular meetings where you talk about progress and any concerns. The important thing is that clients know how to give feedback and feel comfortable doing it.
Right. So it's like making feedback a natural part of the process, not just something you tack on at the end.
Exactly. That's how you build a culture of open communication. Everyone feels comfortable sharing their thoughts all the time.
And another thing these articles talk about is like regular feedback sessions, not just waiting for things to go wrong, but actively asking for feedback. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's a great idea. It gives you a chance to, really stay on top of things, make sure everyone is happy. You can use those sessions to address any concerns before they become big problems, clarify expectations, and, just generally make sure everyone is on the same page.
Right. So it's like staying ahead of the curve, always making those little tweaks that make a big difference in the long run.
Exactly. It makes the whole process more dynamic. Everyone is constantly learning and improving.
Okay, so we've got those clear communication channels, regular feedback sessions, and then the next step is actually using that feedback to make decisions. Not just based on gut feeling, but like based on data. How does that work in the real world?
Well, instead of just going with what feels right, you're taking the feedback you get and you're, really looking at it closely. You're looking for patterns, trying to understand what's really going on. It's about using data to make smarter decisions.
So it's not just, oh, the client said they didn't like this, so we'll change it. It's about understanding why they didn't like it.
Exactly. You got to dig deeper. And that's how you come up with solutions that actually work instead of just putting a bandage on the problem.
Okay, that makes sense. So this is all great in theory, but let's be honest, dealing with feedback can be, a little tricky. Sometimes there's a ton of it and it's not all useful. How do you sort through all that and focus on what matters?
Yeah, that's a real challenge. It's all about, listening carefully and really trying to understand the client's point of view. It's about being able to filter out the noise and focus on what's really important.
So you're saying it's about being able to read between the lines, understanding what the client is really trying to say.
Exactly. You have to be able to listen actively, ask the right questions, and make sure you're both on the same page.
That's a really good point. It's not just about checking a box, it's about using feedback to build a stronger relationship.
Exactly. And that's how you turn feedback from something that could be a problem into something that makes your relationship better.
These articles also talk about this idea of like a feedback culture, like where clients feel like they can just say what they think, even if it's not, it's all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
How do you create that kind of environment?
Yeah. I mean, it's about making sure that people feel safe, like they can share their concerns and suggestions and, even say when they're not happy about something without feeling like they're going to get in trouble.
So like honest feedback is a good thing, not something to be afraid of.
Right. Exactly. And that means that the agency has to be really good at listening, not just hearing what the client is saying, but, understanding where they're coming from.
That makes me think of, what's it called? Actionable feedback. It's one thing to listen, but you gotta like actually do something with that feedback, right?
Oh, for sure. One way to do that is to have a system. You write down the feedback, you decide who's going to take care of each thing, and then you track your progress.
Okay, so it's not just a one-time conversation, it's like an ongoing thing, always trying to get better.
Exactly. You're not just reacting to feedback, you're using it to always be improving.
And that's where like technology comes in, right?
Absolutely. There are tons of tools out there that can help you manage feedback and keep track of everything. They can automate a lot of the process, like collecting the feedback, analyzing it, and creating reports. That frees up more time for the strategic stuff.
Right, so it's like having a digital assistant for feedback. What are some examples of those tools?
Well, one that came up in your research is Review Dingo. It's a platform that helps you centralize all your client feedback, automate follow-ups, and even integrates with other tools you might be using. But there are tons of others out there, each one with different features and strengths.
Right, so it's about finding the right one for your needs, for how you work. It's not like one size fits all.
Exactly. The technology should make things easier, not more complicated.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the, the challenges with feedback. These articles we've been looking at say it's not always easy, sometimes you get a lot of it, and not all of it is helpful. How do you deal with that?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is figuring out what's important. You have to be able to see the big picture, understand what the client is really trying to achieve, and then you can focus on the feedback that will help them get there.
So it's about being able to prioritize, knowing what to focus on.
Exactly. And that's where experience and good communication skills come in.
Yeah.
You have to ask the right questions, make sure everyone understands each other, and really get to the heart of what the client needs.
These articles also talk about like turning challenges into opportunities, like using feedback, even the negative kind, to make things better. How does that work?
Well, every piece of feedback, whether it's good or bad, is a chance to learn, especially the negative feedback. It can tell you a lot about what you need to improve.
So instead of getting defensive, you should see it as a chance to grow.
Exactly. It's about having a growth mindset. You use the feedback to make your processes better, communicate more effectively, and ultimately deliver a better experience for your clients.
That's a really great way to think about it. It's not about criticism, it's about getting better.
Exactly. And that's what separates the good agencies from the great ones. They're not afraid of feedback. They embrace it. They see it as a tool to help them grow and innovate.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. As we wrap up our deep dive into all this stuff about feedback, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing is to remember that feedback isn't just some box you check off. It's really the foundation of, a good relationship between an agency and a client.
Right. It's about both sides feeling like they're being heard and, that their opinions matter.
Exactly. And it's about moving away from that, old way of doing things where it's just a transaction. It's about creating a real partnership where everyone is working together using feedback to make things better.
I like that. It's like feedback is the fuel, right? Keeps the whole thing running smoothly.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But like any fuel, you got to use it the right way. You need the right systems in place. You got to be open to hearing what people have to say, and you got to use the data to make smart decisions.
Right. And we talked about, turning those challenges into opportunities, learning from every piece of feedback, even the tough stuff.
Absolutely. It's all about having that, what do they call it, a growth mindset. Seeing feedback as a way to get better, not as a personal attack.
Okay, so before we go, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. Imagine you're the client. What kind of feedback system would make you feel, really valued and confident in your agency?
Ooh, that's a great question. It really makes you see things from the other side, doesn't it? Helps you understand what's important to clients.
Yeah, it's about going beyond the basics, creating a system that really works for everyone involved.
Exactly. Because when clients feel valued, when they feel like they have a voice, they're more likely to stick around.
Hmm.
And that's good for everyone.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into feedback. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those feedback loops flowing.